Hey folks, it's Big D, and today we're going to go through some potential settings for Elder Scrolls 6 and use my unparalleled god powers to pick the best one. As per usual, if you have an idea for a setting that I neglected to include in this list, I genuinely don't care. I love you all. That being said, let's get started. Akavir. Akavir is just an excuse for the weebs among Bethesda's staff to drop samurai gear into Tamriel. And please do not do me the disrespect of pretending otherwise. Akavir's lore is vague, pretentious, and grossly underdeveloped in comparison to Tamriel's. And I don't know about you, but I'm sure as Malakath not about to play a game featuring snake men or tiger folk as playable races. It's bad enough that we already have Argonians and Khajiit. Let's move on. Aldmeris. Sure, let's explore the birthplace of Altmeri incest. Sounds like a super fun experience that everyone, including no one, will enjoy. On to the next setting. Atmora. Boy, who could possibly imagine a game set in a frozen hellscape inhabited by Vikings? What an original concept that we've certainly never seen before. Let's move on before the old Dagoth sarcasm meter hits empty. I've seen tapeworm-infested piles of guar scat that would make for better settings than Black Marsh. The place is ground zero for every fucked-up disease that's ever terrorized Tamriel except Corpus, and the only character build for which its Slavosaurus inhabitants are suited is cattle. Get real, big kids. Test 6 Argonia would be a travesty. Still better than Starfield, though. High Rock. There's really not much I can say about High Rock other than High Rock should not be the setting for Elder Scrolls 6. It's a feudal hell state controlled by 5 prominent royal houses that are constantly at odds with one another. What a stupid way to run a country. Bretons are a lesser race. Let's get to the next one. Hammerfell. If you trace the origins of the Red Guards back to ancient times, you'll discover that they came from a whole other non-Tamrielic continent called Yakadoodle or something. But if you trace their origins back even further, you'll find that they actually glitched over here from a totally different Kalpa. So they're essentially like super outlanders, and there's not an Argonian's chance in the Kimona Tong of me letting them into my tribe unmourned by playing a game set in their filthy country. Hammerfell's not even worthy of a free DLC. It's dry and yucky. Let's move on to Orsinium so I can Malakath on the orcs. Orsinium, a word which apparently translates to Orktown in the tongue of the turds. The underbited bowel beasts known as the orcs call this dung heap home. Imagine a game set here. The Elder Scrolls 6, Latrine. By the boner of Nerevar, that might actually be the death knell of Bethesda Softworks if they decide to go with this one. Who would even be the main antagonist in such a game? Scrubbing bubbles? No thanks. Let's move on. Valenwood. Yeah, no thank you. I'm not a big fan of wood elves. The Altmer made Dagoth their own cousins, but by the 9 false gods, at least they don't serve them for dinner. I don't know about you sleepers, but I'm really not interested in playing a game featuring Jeffrius Domarius as a major quest giver. Next setting, please, and thank you. Elsweyr. A fitting name for sure, because if Bethesda's goal is to create a fun game, they'd be better off setting the game elsewhere. Khajiit aren't people, and they don't deserve to have their habitat featured in an Elder Scrolls game unless said habitat is a zoo exhibit in another province. Let's move on. The Summerset Isles. Alinor. The land where everybody's mother is also their sister, cousin, daughter, and grandmother. I thank myself every day for dreaming up a world in which my ancestors dipped out of that execrable cistern of frothing endogamy before the birth defects started to set in and produce babies with 3 eyes and freaky fingers. If this place is the setting for Elder Scrolls 6, I'm not playing. Next one, please. Cyrodiil. The scarcely beating heart of the dying Septim Empire, Cyrodiil is a draconic symbol of oppression to the downtrodden races of Tamriel. And I simply will not stand for any of that colonialist bigotry in the next test game. The mongrel dogs of the Empire already had their undeserved time to shine with TES 4. And I'm glad the graphics made all their faces look like feces, moving right along. Skyrim. Willow anthers are pink, stone flowers are blue, Nords are an inferior race, and if Skyrim was a race, it would be an inferior race too. I think I can speak for all sentient beings and Argonians and Khajiit when I say we've had our fill of Nords for the rest of this Kalpa. Plus, it would be absolutely ridiculous to reuse an old setting for the next Elder Scrolls game. Let's move on. Morrowind. Morrowind should be the setting for the next Elder Scrolls game. A wild and untamed land brimming with mystery, adventure, and beautiful elves who aren't preachy hippies or inbred freaks of nature, Morrowind is widely considered to be the most realistic choice of setting for Test 6. I already have an idea for a plot in mind. Everyone go to sleep. It's time to dream. Picture it. Vvardenfell, 4E205. A Dunmer protagonist, and I do mean an exclusively Dunmer protagonist. None of that Altmer, Bosmer, Breton, mongrel dog of the Empire, Nord, Shitmer, Redguard, Khajiit, or Gecko bullshit, is released from custody in the port town of Seda Neen. They're an outlander, an Enwa without a cause. But upon meeting a young and strapping ancient Chimer god with a golden mask, they are informed of a remarkable truth. They are the latest and greatest reincarnation of Indoral Nerevar himself. The masked god and the Nerevarine rekindle an ancient romance, and this time their romance cannot be broken, because that gold-digging wretch Almalexia is finally dead. They become engaged. And at the altar of marriage, Nerevar reborn is asked by the ascended sleeper priest, "Do you, Nerevar incarnate, take Dagoth as your lawfully wedded husband?" And with tears of happiness and adoration streaming down their cheeks, Nerevar reborn says, "I do." Then the ascended sleeper turns to the masked god and asks in kind, "Do you, Dagoth take this gorgeous Dunmer specimen and reincarnated warlord as your lawfully wedded husband or wife, depending on the gender of the character?" And then the god removes his mask, revealing a most loving and joyous smile, and he leans forward toward the Nerevarine, his lips but a hair's width away from theirs, and says with a soft and delectably divine tone of voice, "I don't, because you're a filthy fucking outlander."